Welcome back to another episode of DAS with your host Sean Mack. Today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite heels in the WWE/WWF history, the Iron Sheik. He was a true villain. If you like the content of this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So let's go. Hussein Khosrow Ali Vaziri, born March 15, 1942, and left this world peacefully on June 7, 2023, better known for his ring name, the Iron Sheik, was an American-Iranian professional wrestler, amateur wrestler, and actor. He was the first and thus far the only Iranian champion in the WWE's history, having won the WWF World Heavyweight Championship in 1983. The villainous character peaked during the 1980s WWF wrestling boom, and his rivalry with Hulk Hogan turned Hogan into one of the greatest television heroes of the decade. He later formed a tag team with Nikolai Volkov, which won the WWF Tag Team Championship at the inaugural WrestleMania event. In 2005, he was inducted into the WWE's Hall of Fame. A heel throughout the 80s, Sheik later gained popularity on Kids Chris, The Howard Stern Show, and the internet due to his shoot interviews, vulgar language, and apparent intense dislike for some of his fellow professional wrestlers, particularly Hulk Hogan and Brian Blair. However, the true nature of his relationship with Hogan has been a subject of debate. Now, let's take a deeper dive into the life and death of the Iron Sheik. Born in Damhan, Iran, Vaziri grew up in a working-class family which had little money or no running water. Although his passport read March 15, he celebrates his birthday on September 9th due to his family altering between the Gregorian calendar and the solar calendar. In his youth, he idolized Iranian gold medalist wrestler Gulamaza Tati, and he subsequently made a name for himself as an amateur wrestler. He also worked as a bodyguard for Sheikh Mohammed Razi and his family for several years. Vaziri competed for a spot on the Iranians' Greek-Roman wrestling team for the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. After Tati was mysteriously found dead in 1968, Vaziri began fearing for his safety and decided to immigrate to the United States to advance his career. He then moved to the United States and became an assistant coach for two U.S. Olympic squads in the 1970s. In 1971, he was the amateur union Greco-Roman wrestling champion and the gold medalist at 180 pounds. He later became an assistant coach to the U.S. team for the 1972 Olympic Games in Munich. In 1972, Vaziri was invited to become a professional wrestler by promoter Vern Gagne. Vaziri trained in the same class as Ric Flair at Gagne's wrestling camp under trainer Billy Robinson, and then wrestling for Gagne's American Wrestling Association, the AWA. He also worked as a trainer teaching Ricky Steamboat, Greg Gagne, and Jim Brunzell. Vaziri first wrestled as a face in the preliminary matches before a promoter suggested that he adopt a heel gimmick similar to that of the Notorious Sheik. The Iron Sheik obliged and adopted what came to be his signature look. He shaved his head bald, grew a traditional buffo mustache, and added wrestling boots with the toe curled up, a nod to his ethnic background, which according to him was an idea by Jimmy Snuka. He also introduced the Persian clubs, a sport in his native Iran, and challenged wrestlers to do as many swings as he. His Iranian gimmick received attention due to the events in the Iranian Revolution, taking the name the Great Hussein Arab. He won his first title, the Canadian Tag Team Championship, with a partner, the Texas Outlaw. He wrestled in Japan against the likes of Steve Day and Antonio Inoki in 1978. In 1979, he caught the eye of the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF, where he made his debut in 1979 and won the first ever Battle Royale in Madison Square Garden in New York City. This earned him a title shot at then-champion Bob Backlund, who pinned him later that night in a 30-minute battle. He later feuded with Chief J. Strongbow and Bruno Sammartino before leaving in 1980. From April of 1980 to July of 1982, the Iron Sheik wrestled for many other promotions such as Georgia Championship Wrestling in Florida, Mid-South Wrestling, and Jimmy Crockett Promotions. But he returned to the WWF in 1983 and challenged Bob Backlund for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship again. Backlund accepted, and on the December 24th episode of All American Wrestling, he also accepted Sheik's weekly Persian Club Challenge. He was successful in his third attempt to swing the club, and the Sheiks immediately attacked him from behind, injuring his neck. In the December 26th title bout at Madison Square Garden, Backlund attempted to roll Sheik into a bridge pin, but this aggravated his weakened neck. Sheik capitalized by applying his camel clutch chin lock finisher. Backlund didn't submit, but his concerned manager Arnold Skyland threw in the towel and forfeited the championship. 2 days later at Madison Square Garden, the Iron Sheik was scheduled to rematch Backlund, who was replaced by Hulk Hogan. 5 minutes in, Sheik had Hogan locked in a camel clutch. Hogan powered to his feet, with Sheik still on his back, rammed him backwards into the turnbuckle, and hit his atomic leg drop for the pin and the championship. According to the Iron Sheik, Gagne had offered him $100,000 to break Hogan's leg during the match and return to the AWA with the WWF title, though Gagne's son Greg Gagne has disputed this claim. He then bitterly feuded with Sergeant Slaughter, winning a few matches by disqualification but losing the rest by pinfall or submission, including a, quote, boot camp rules, end quote, match. In my opinion, what made the Iron Sheik one of the greatest heels in wrestling history was actually the tag team with him and Nikolai Volkov. The two would regularly enter the ring consistently waving the flag of the Iranian and Soviet Union. They demanded that the crowd were quiet and show respect, while Volkov sang the throaty version of the Soviet national anthem, a demand that usually only attracted boos from the usually pro-American crowds. The Sheik would usually grab the mic and say Iran #1, Russia #1, US and Canada, followed by a spitting simulated act. It was all designed very successfully to get major heat from the crowd. He also got heat in his interview with Mean Gene by concluding with the demand, "Hey cameraman, zoom in," as he flexed his muscles. In May of 1987, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, his on-screen rival, and the Iron Sheik were pulled over by New Jersey State Police on their way to a WWF event, suspecting Duggan of a DUI. After a search of the vehicle and the two men, police discovered that Duggan was under the influence of marijuana, while the Sheik was high on cocaine. Small amounts of cocaine were also found in the vehicle. Duggan received a conditional release while Sheik was placed on probation for a year. The mini-scandal that erupted after the two in-ring enemies were found drinking and doing drugs together led to the end of that angle. The Sheik was released, and Duggan temporarily departed from the WWF. At the time, the Sheik and Volkov were embroiled in a feud with the patriotic Duggan. Before the Sheik's release from the company, he and Volkov had defeated the Killer Bees, jumping Jim Brunzell and Brian B. Blair by disqualification at WrestleMania 3 in front of 93,173 people in the Pontiac Silverdome, when Duggan had hit the Sheik from behind with a 2x4 piece of wood, while he had Brunzell in a camel clutch. After Sheik's arrest, he worked in-house shows against Jim Duggan until leaving the WWF in October of 1987. But on February 18, 1988, the Iron Sheik returned to the WWF and defeated S.D. Jones on a house show at the Meadowlands Arena. The Sheik continued to wrestle on house shows in February and March, beating Lanny Poffo and Ken Patera and losing to Bam Bam Bigelow. He would not appear on television until July 30th, when he defeated Scott Casey in a match that aired on Primetime Wrestling. The Iron Sheik would return to the WWF from 1991 to 1992. From 1992 to 2010, he would make sporadic appearances in the WWF/E. On April 1st of 2001, at WrestleMania 7, the Iron Sheik won the Gimmick Battle Royale, a match between other popular and outlandish wrestlers from the 1980s and 1990s. Rather than be booed for winning, the villainous Sheik, who had gained something of a cult following amongst wrestling fans, was cheered as a fan favorite. He eliminated Hillbilly Jim to win the Battle Royale and was immediately attacked from behind by his ex-rival Sergeant Slaughter, who put him in the Cobra Clutch. In 2005, before WrestleMania 21 in Los Angeles, the Iron Sheik was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by his longtime rival and former partner Sergeant Slaughter. On June 11 of 2007, on a episode of Raw, he, along with Jimmy Snuka, appeared in a tape segment showing their appreciation of WWE's owner, Vince McMahon. After retiring from wrestling, the Iron Sheik went on to have a small but funny acting career. He made his film debut in The Tale of the Three Muhammads in 2005. He then appeared alongside Daniel Baldwin and Corey Feldman in the Operation Belvis Bash in 2011. The Sheik also made appearances on the Canadian show Kenny vs. Spinney, on the Who is a Better Pro Wrestler. He also appeared in the Maz Jobrani's 2009 stand-up comedy special, Brown and Friendly. The Sheik made an appearance as himself on Robot Chicken, as well as the Eric and Andre show on the Cartoon Network's Adult Swim. In 2014, the Iron Sheik acted in a documentary about his life titled The Sheik. Vazuri, better known as the Iron Sheik, died at his home in Fayetteville, Georgia on July 7, 2023 at the age of 81. At the time of my recording, his reason for death is unknown. Rest in peace, Big Dog. Thanks for watching. I've been your host, Sean Mack. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you like the content, hit up that comment section as well. And tell me, am I wrong for thinking that the Iron Sheik was actually the best heel in wrestling's history, throughout all of wrestling history? Once again, thanks for watching. Death After Sports, the Iron Sheik.